Section 6.2, writing sharp key signatures. You already have a ton of practice looking at a set of sharps and then figuring out the name of the major key. So just to recap that briefly, you know that if you see this key signature right here, we have F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp, you take that last sharp and you go up a half step from G sharp lands you on A, so you're in the key of A major. Same process over here. You have an F sharp and a C sharp. Go up a half step from the last one. So up a half step from C sharp lands you on the note D. So we get D major as the major key. And then that kind of tricky one, 6 sharps. You know that you have F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp. Up a half step from E sharp lands you indeed on the note F sharp. So it's the key of F sharp major. So that's all well and good, but we need to be able to go in the opposite direction as well. In other words, instead of starting from here and going to there, we need to be able to start from here. We need to be given the key of A major, and then we need to be able to accurately write out its key signature. So starting from D major and coming up with this key signature, starting from F sharp major and coming up with that key signature. Now, the thing is, you don't really need to know any new material to be able to do this. You just have to think of the same material in the reverse order. So what you will do is, given one of these starting points, some major key, in order to find the last sharp in its key signature, you're going to go down by a half step, right? Because you're going through this process in the reverse. And going down by a half step will give you the last sharp in its key signature. And if we turn the page, if you figure out what the last sharp is going to be, well, you certainly should be able to figure out how many sharps there are, because we're still going to follow that good old order of sharps. They will always appear in the same order. And then when you're writing out the key signatures themselves, you're still going to follow that 2-3-2 slanted pattern. So you know the order of sharps, and then this just helps you determine exactly where they will live on the staff. So here are a couple of examples. I realize that the answers are essentially already written in, but let me see if I can walk you through these step by step. So imagine that you've just been given this assignment. You just are supposed to write the key signature for the key of E major, and I'm just leaving out the word major because capital letters are fine to stand in for major keys. So given that, and I'm just telling you up front that we know that it's going to be a sharp key. We'll get into why that is later on. But for right now, just assume we're only dealing with sharps. So how do you figure out the key signature for this key? Well, we know that if we go down by a half step from the note E, that will give us our last sharp. So I put our little keyboard over here to the right. Here is our starting point, and we want to go down to find the last sharp. So down a half step lands us on that black key. Now we know from previous chapters that that black key could be spelled as D sharp, but it could also be spelled as E flat. Which one is it? Well, remember, we're looking for a last sharp. We have to select the one that is a sharp. So we know, therefore, that D sharp is going to be our last sharp in the key signature. Okay, well, the hard part is over. Now we just need to remember that stupid sentence with the cats. So fat cats go down. If we make D sharp be our last sharp, that means we have F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. In other words, we just recite that sentence or that order of sharps until we hit the one that we want to be last. So indeed, we want to have 4 sharps in this key signature. And when we write them, you're following that slanted pattern. You pause after writing out 4 because that's all you need. So that is indeed our correct answer. And of course, yes, it was right over there. But you can also check your answer to see if you've done it correctly by going in the normal direction. So pretend that you started with this. How would you figure out the major key? Well, you take that last sharp, you go up a half step, that lands you on the note E, so it's E major. Yep, checks out. That's exactly what you wanted. Now let's do a harder one, this second example here. Let's say I gave you C sharp major. That's your assignment to write the key signature for. So C sharp major, well, this is the name of your major key. I'm over on the keyboard here in the bottom right. And you want to go down by a half step to figure out its last sharp. So we land on that note. Yes, often that note goes by the name of C, but that itself is not a sharp. Is there a way that we could think of that note right there as a sharped note? Well, yes, it's equivalent to B sharp, right? So this note here, is a B sharp for our purposes. So B sharp is going to be our last sharp in the key signature. So how many sharps does that mean we have? Well, fat cats go down alleys eating bread. So we need all 7 sharps, all words of that silly sentence. So when we write it out in bass clef, it'll look like that. All 7 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, B sharp. Now let me do a few of these where the answers are not visible, so you can perhaps more clearly see the method. So again, in this section, I'm just telling you that all of these have sharps. So don't worry about flats for right now. Everything is going to have sharps. So let's take this first one, D major. So how do we figure out its last sharp? I'm going to clear off our keyboard. Well, we need to go down a half step from the name of the key. So here's the name of our key. That's a D. Down a half step, we're looking for the last sharp. So that's a black key. Could be spelled as C sharp, could be spelled as a D flat. Well, we want the sharp version, right? So C sharp is going to be our last sharp in the key signature. In other words, the one furthest to the right. Well, given that, we just need to recite our sentence. So fat cats on, we can stop there. So we will need F sharp and C sharp, and that's it in our key signature. So we just want those first 2 sharps. So when we write them on the staff, that's where the F sharp lives, and that's where the C sharp lives. I will do maybe one more as a demonstration, and then I'll plow through the rest of them very quickly. So let's tackle this one right here, this F sharp major. It's another tricky one. So F sharp major, we need to figure out its last sharp. We need to go down a half step from the note F sharp. Here's an F sharp on the piano keyboard. Go down by half step when we land on that note right there. Yes, often it goes by the name of F, but that itself is not a sharp note. Is there a way that we could think of this note as a sharp note? Yep, we could think of it as an E sharp, and that's exactly what we want. So if E sharp is going to be our last sharp, how many do we have? Well, fat cats go down alleys eating. So we need a total of 6 sharps. I'll just abbreviate it there. We know which ones they are. So F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, and E sharp. And you stop right there. So I'll give you just a second if you want to pause the video and work out the rest of the exercises. I'll go over the answers in just a moment. All right, let's talk through the remaining answers. A major, go down a half step. That lands you on G sharp. So fat cats go, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and you stop there since you wanted G sharp to be your last sharp. Next one, G major, go down a half step. That lands you on F sharp. So you write your sharps. Oh, that's all you need to do. That's the one you wanted to be last, so you just need to write the first one, F sharp. Then B major, go down a half step. So it lands you on the note A sharp, believe it or not, and you just write your key signature until you hit A sharp. So F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp. We're all done with the first line. Next line, down a half step from E, lands you on D sharp. So F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp. C sharp, down a half step. That's that tricky one from before. Lands you on B sharp. So you write your sharps until you hit that. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, B sharp. So it's all 7 sharps, all words of that sentence. Down a half step from D, lands you on C sharp. So F sharp, C sharp. Down a half step from A, still lands you on G sharp. So F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. And down a half step from F sharp, still lands you on E sharp, just as we saw in the prior line. So F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, and E sharp. So notice, of course, that some of these are the same from line to line, but the A major key signature in bass clef looks slightly differently than the key signature for A major in treble clef because the notes live in different locations on the staff. But it's still 3 sharps, and you still have that same slanting pattern.